Okay, so welcome. This is a Knowledge Bites webinar with Preservation Trust of Vermont today, hosted by the Brattleboro Development Corporation, Credit Corporation Southern Vermont Economy Project. So the Southern Vermont Economy Project is supported by a grant from the USDA through the Rural Community Development Initiative, and our goal is to support projects and community development efforts across Southern Vermont. And part of what we do as our training and technical assistants is bring people in for these short webinars that happen during lunchtime, where you can make a connection to things that you can use right away in your community and to support your community project. So today we've invited the Preservation Trust of Vermont here because they do a spectacular series of trainings that are in person and that happen usually across the spring into the fall. And my program can support people to attend that. So if people are working for an organization and they feel like they would benefit from attending one of these and we can help make that happen financially, we are willing to do that. And so how you would make that happen would be to reach out to me and I will put my email in the chat, or you can find it at the Brattleboro Development Credit Corporation website. Just reach out to me and let me know. And we can make the arrangements to help you attend a training. So that's something we like to do. Yeah.
Yeah. So Daniel Towler and myself both have signed up for your July 9th Preservation Trust July 9th 2-day or 1-day seminar. So we've already signed up and we've already paid our money and we've gone to our town and we are not sure exactly where the support's going to come from other than our pockets.
So feel free to reach out. So, we'll reach out after the call. Why don't we connect and we can help you do that because we can reimburse you after you go. But if the town can support some of it, we can match that, or we can just make a plan. So that's wonderful. So we'll be in touch after the call, and anyone else who's jumping on or watching the recording, you can reach out via email and let you know. I mean, it's always some terms and conditions apply because we have federal funding of how we do it, but it's not hard. And so we're here to make it easy for people to go to high quality things. And I have to say, I have personally attended that fundraising for your community project retreat. I think that's the one in July, and it's really very helpful. It's just a wealth of knowledge and really terrific and focused on community projects. So that's why the Preservation Trust really understands how these things work in Vermont, in Vermont municipalities and Vermont nonprofits, and they have this deep understanding. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jackson Evans, and he's just going to run through what this year's trainings are and who might want to attend the different ones. So Jackson, go ahead.
Great. Thanks, Meg. Thanks very much for having us here. And I'm happy to be part of the webinar series and share some information about Preservation Trust and in particular our retreats. So I thought I would give a little bit of background for people who may not be familiar with the work Preservation Trust does. Our mission is to build community, and we do that through the preservation of historic buildings, downtowns, and village centers. But really the core of the mission is to build community. So preservation is the lens we do it through. And we do that in a variety of ways. Whoops. We're a statewide historic preservation nonprofit, 501c3, founded in 1980. Our current staff is made up of 8 folks. 3 are dedicated to field service work, and then a variety of other functions to keep our organization going. And we support a variety of projects around the state. The image here is a recent one from the Middle Branch Grange in Bethel that had a pretty devastating fire in January, and somehow the building was saved, but we're helping them with some structural assessments done and try to figure out a path forward to preserving the building. So that's kind of an example of what we do. In 2023, we worked with 250 projects in 150 communities. So we reach a lot of different folks around the state. Field service work is the backbone of PTV's work. We are out meeting with project owners or property owners or nonprofits or municipalities to help them troubleshoot, provide technical assistance, look for funding sources for their projects. We connect people with condition assessments and structural engineers to help answer questions about the building and how best to proceed. The image on the left is of the Barry Depot after the flooding in July. They experienced some pretty devastating flooding, and we brought in an architect and an engineer to help them plan to make the building more resilient. And then the building on the right is Main Street Arts in Saxton's River, which we've helped throughout the years. Really, the goal of field service is to find the holes and fill them with information. So, the Swiss cheese on this charcuterie board is a good example. We try to help identify those knowledge gaps. And one of the tools that we use to do that is our preservation retreats. We've been doing these retreats since the late 90s, I believe, at the Grand Isle Lake House. They're held starting usually in May and running through October. And every year we put up a different slate of topics kind of based on what we're seeing from our field work and where we feel the greatest need for information is. One of the ones that we always have every year in and year out, is fundraising, because that's one of the biggest challenges that groups are faced with, especially if they're new to this kind of work, or maybe maybe they've done fundraising work in the past, but the 2024 era of fundraising is very different from what it was even 5 years ago. So fundraising is a backbone of these preservation retreats. And this is a hard thing describing the atmosphere that the retreats take is really difficult unless you've been there. It's a really unique experience because you're in a group of usually 8 to 10, maybe 12 projects from around the state that are all at different phases in their preservation journeys. And so you get to see a spectrum of what projects look like, from start to near finish to a second phase of preservation work. And in seeing that spectrum of projects, you get a real feel for what your project might look like in a few years. And that perspective, I think, is really difficult to gain when you're plugging away day in and day out on your project and not really able to see the full picture. So sitting in a circle on the Grand Isle Lake House porch overlooking Lake Champlain and talking to peer groups about your struggles, I mean, it becomes almost preservation therapy, and we sort of joke about that, but it really is like a therapeutic experience of sharing meals, sharing space, networking before, during, and after the kind of programmed events. So it's a pretty magical opportunity to share time with people who are doing similar work. I've been able to attend probably a dozen retreats, both in my time with Preservation Trust and prior to working for Preservation Trust. I came to several different retreats for different preservation projects I was working on, and I get something new out of each of them. I mean, it's really a remarkable experience. So. Here's a great drone shot of the Grand Isle Lake House, situated on Robinson Point in Grand Isle. The bay, there's sort of a bigger bay behind us here, and then the lake stretches out to the left. I joke with people that this is the largest historic porch in Vermont. We measured it finally. It's 3,800 square feet. It wraps around the entire building, and nobody's been able to come up with a larger covered porch in Vermont. So that's another calling card here of our preservation retreat. I'll just go back to this. So the second floor of the building was rehabbed in the 90s and is where all the rooms are. So we have 12 guest rooms on the upstairs, and the downstairs is a dining area, kitchen, kind of a large sitting room. The third floor is actually has not been rehabbed, and it's kind of a relic of the early 1900s. It's pretty neat, but we haven't gotten there yet. So the retreats that we have scheduled for 2024, we actually have, I forgot to put the April retreat on, and the April retreat is a little unique in that it's the first retreat we're taking on the road. Retreats have always been at the lake house and will always be there, but we've decided that we'll try something out new this year, and we're going to take our Sacred Places retreat, which focuses on houses of worship and sacred places around the state, particularly historic sacred places. We decided to take that one on the road to Bennington. So we'll be in Bennington on April 24th. It's a one-day retreat, which is atypical. Our retreats are usually overnight events. But this one being on the road, we decided to do one day. And we're really excited about that. It could be a really great opportunity to test out a new system and maybe bring some more retreats to different parts of the state. So that one's on April 24th. The first Lake House retreat is May 21st through the 22nd, and this is a new one for us for historical societies. We work with a lot of historical societies around the state who are trying to figure out how their museums and their missions fit into the 21st century. You know, historical societies had their heyday around the bicentennial and in the 60s and 70s, and many of them have struggled to kind of figure out how they fit in. Some have excelled, and some have come up with really creative ways of using their buildings to create community in a different way than they maybe have before. And so this retreat will really help those groups zero in on how the building that they're in, the historic building they use, how that serves the mission. And we'll have guests from the Division for Historic Preservation, and the Vermont Historical Society will be there to kind of offer some technical assistance and talk about potential funding opportunities. So anyone who's involved in a historical society, or maybe is thinking about, maybe a historical society is thinking about acquiring a building. There are historical societies that don't own buildings, so those would be good people to attend that one. The June 12th and 13th retreat focuses on community revitalization through nonprofit ownership. This is our community supported enterprise type retreat. And this would be focused around, we've done a lot of work with general stores that have converted to nonprofit ownership as a way to keep their buildings going. This retreat will really look at the model of establishing a nonprofit organization that owns the physical building, and then has an operating agreement with a for-profit operator to operate either a store, any kind of a store, housing type arrangement. There's a lot of different flavors that this community supported enterprise model can take. And so people who are contemplating that, this would be a good retreat to attend. We're also in the early stages of launching our Village Trust Initiative, which is a similar model to the CSC, but it's a more fully supported model. There's some funding that could be available to community supported enterprise projects. So people who are interested in that would also be good fit for this one. July 9th and 10th is our fundraising and project management. This is a stalwart retreat that is really valuable. It's led by Christine Graham, who is a fundraiser, has been doing fundraising in Vermont for 40 years or more, and has a wealth of knowledge about capital campaigns, about annual appeals, and how to do fundraising. And she's kept up to date on all the kind of latest trends in philanthropy and in capital campaign techniques. So I get something new out of that retreat every single time. And you walk away from that feeling like in about a week you could raise $1 million if you needed to. She really presents the tools in a really thoughtful way. And then the other component of that is a project management piece. And this is a kind of a brief overview of how to kind of consider your project, some tips for managing things like procurement and putting out scopes of work and RFPs. And there's some kind of nuts and bolts things that may be new to some people and may be refreshers to others. But it's a great retreat, and Christine just does a terrific job. September 10th and 11th is another new one, new retreat for the Preservation Trust. We're calling it New Housing in Old Buildings. And this is kind of a response to the housing shortage in Vermont. I mean, we're working with a lot of different groups, and we have for a long time, actually, a lot of different groups who are putting new housing opportunities in historic buildings. So whether that's a mixed use building where the first floor has been retail space for years, but the upper 2 floors have been abandoned or not used, or this is a way to kind of look at strategies for increasing our housing opportunities and using existing building stock. So that's a new one for us, and it'll be exciting to bring in some projects to share their experience for that. And then our wrap-up retreat is on October 8th and 9th. And this focuses on accessibility in historic buildings. A large part of what Preservation Trust does, a large part of the technical assistance that we end up providing is for groups who are challenged to make their buildings more accessible. And, libraries, municipal buildings, nonprofit owned buildings, these are all buildings that may not have great accessibility to begin with, but there's a creative way to achieve accessibility that also retains as much of the historic character of the building as possible. And it's a compromise and it's a balance, but we've done it successfully, and we work with architects who understand how to do this work. And so this will be a chance to kind of share some projects, share challenges that different groups are faced with in their accessibility work, and figure out ways to go through that. The cost to attend the retreats is $135. That covers a room for the night and 3 meals. If there's another person from your group who's attending and you don't mind sharing a room, then the second a roommate fee is $65. So that basically just cuts out the cost for the room, but covers all your meals. And the food is outstanding. I can't, it shouldn't be the focus of the event, but it really is good. The lake house is leased to a catering company that holds events there during the weekends, weddings and other events. And the food that they create is incredible. So it's a good eating experience.
I can attest. I've been there. Sorry to interrupt, but I can say I've been to the retreats, and it's as part of the downtown program. They always have a retreat every year, and I've been to a fundraising retreat, and it is, as you describe it, a wonderful, unique experience, and just a chance to really learn from experts and from each other, and to develop supports and connections that you can, people that you can email who are doing projects and really kind of bond with. And the whole experience is wonderful, but also the place is so fun to be at the lake house. It's really a special place, and the food is great. And it's just, you feel like you come out with ready to set the world on fire, because you've had this chance to not only learn, but to be part of a community and to enjoy the space. It's like a mini learning vacation. It's fantastic.
Great. Yes. I mean, there are times too when you need a shot in the arm, and it's timed well. Yeah. Because we have a pretty big project here, as Jackson knows, and these types of things have a tendency to boost you. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, good. Yeah, it's a real, we like to call it a cup filling moment. Like you kind of leave feeling like the shot in the arm, like you said. That's exactly right. So I thought I would just link to our website and kind of look through quickly how you navigate to get registered. If you're signed up for our mailing list, we do send out notifications periodically with information about when the retreat deadlines are and things like that. But this list, here's our sacred places in Bennington day-long retreat. So each of the retreats will have a click-through registration button.
I found it really easy to use.
Good. That's good. We've gotten more high tech over the years, so it's so let's just click through on one of these. So you click register now, and it'll take you to a simple registration page where you can put in, how many ever rooms if you've got 2 people and they don't want to share rooms, you'd put in 2 for this, and then if you have a person who's going to share a room, you'd add 1 for the 65 roommate fee, and then go through checkout just like you would in any other online shopping experience. And then about a week before the retreat, we send out an agenda with some logistical information and a prompt. Usually there's a prompt. We ask each group to come to the retreat with a challenge that they're dealing with, or something else that they would like the group to kind of take on as a talking point. And let's see, I'm just going to get back to here. And so that's kind of, you'll need to bring a brief 5-minute. This is the only hard part about the retreats. You have 5 minutes minutes to talk about your project, which seems like a lot, but once you start talking, you realize you really have to work to be concise about your 5-minute presentation. And then there's usually 15 to 20 minutes of group conversation. So you quickly pitch the thing that you're struggling with, the biggest challenge you face, or whatever the prompt that you're asked to prepare to talk about. You deliver that, and then the group has a chance to kind of share their own experiences. Our presenting partners, for the fundraising retreat, that would be Christine, and also I think Caitlin Corkins from the Division for Historic Preservation is usually there. It's a chance for them to kind of offer some insight. And in 20 minutes, you get, like, if you were to write it all down, it would be pages of notes from people about here's what worked for us, or here's what didn't work for us, or you should call this person, or it's kind of remarkable how much information you can get from a 5-minute presentation and 20 minutes of kind of hearing what people have to say. So I think I've covered everything, the nuts and bolts of our retreats. My contact information, email, phone number, our website are on this slide. And Preservation Trust is here for a variety of technical assistance issues. So if there's groups who are watching this and feel like they could use some assistance in getting their project started, or maybe picking it up from it being stalled, please feel free to reach out, and one of us would be happy to help. So happy to take any questions or elaborate.
No, I think this is good. I do think that accessibility in historic buildings is a big one for us too. So we'll put that on the agenda to talk about for that time.
Yeah,
but no,
great.
This has been good.
And Leanne, I'll also share with you, because we actually had Caitlin Corkins on recently on our program, and they did a really nice presentation showing some projects that had been worked on, and we had a couple of different presenters on that. So I'll send you the link to that. It's worth a watch because it was really thoughtful how they talked about thinking about accessibility. So it just gives you that's really useful. And then I will say, if anyone wants to speak with me about helping, pay for your trip to a Preservation Trust retreat, basically, we reimburse. So it would involve, going to the retreat and then sending us back a few words about, what you learned and what you got out of it, to share with us. And then we can provide reimbursement. We can't pay individuals. So somehow the reimbursement has to go to an organization or a municipality. So depending on how, so that does make it, you have to figure that part out. That's my terms and conditions, because our program is really to support organizations and municipalities. So you have to work out the financial details on your end, but if you let us know that you're going to attend, and then afterwards contact us and say it was amazing, here's the invoice and here's who you can reimburse, and then we'll take care of that for you right away. And I have been to these, and I know it takes a lot from Southern Vermont to drive up there. You give up a few hours of travel each way. So that's why we're more than happy to support people's, attendance at the program, to sort of help you be better able to take that time. But I will say it's super worth it. And tell people, doing community projects. And we're really happy to help support people accessing this terrific resource, that's in our state. It's really, like I say, it's Preservation Trust of Vermont is special, and because they really understand the landscape that we work in. It's not, they're intimately involved, and they worked with so many towns and so many projects. They understand how things are set up sort of in Vermont, and the common problems and how we work. And I think that just makes it incredibly valuable, because they have that real depth of experience and knowledge about, like what can happen in these projects. And I think you learn so much from other projects, because even though every project is unique, every project also has similarities with other projects. And so the more you can, learn from other people, ask that question, what would you have done differently if you had to start today, is always useful to hear, and also to just get that support of knowing that you know, like we say, it is that chance to feel like you can do this, and realizing that sometimes it does take a long time, but that's okay. And that you have support and help along the way. So, Jackson, I thank you so much for coming, and we're going to share this recording around. I was going through my mental list of historical societies and thinking there are so many, and I know it's, you know, so many of them own buildings, and hopefully we can get some people connected to the retreat on that as well. And then housing, of course, you know, mixed use buildings and just buildings in towns that really would be a good fit for the community supported enterprise, just because you know, a lot of people can't afford to both buy a building and start a business. And so if somebody else can support the business by owning the building, and that the community can do that, it's a really useful way to have general stores, community coffee shops, things like that, that make our communities great places to live. So thank you so much. I'm gonna, I think, stop the recording now, and we'll share this out. And Leanne, we really appreciate you knowing that you're going to go to the fundraising one, and it's really it's a great one. I highly recommend that one for any project.
Good. It'll be warm enough to swim.